Hello, and you are very welcome to this pit stop for Maracaibo, designed by Alexander Pfister, published by Capstone Games and Games Up. In Maracaibo, it is a 1 to 4 player game taking half an hour per player, and each of the players is going to be a privateer in the Caribbean looking to sail around over 4 rounds, each round representing a decade of your career, looking to stop at the various areas on this route around and around. And when we get to the end of the route, that's the end of one of the 4 rounds. After the 4 rounds, we're going to see who's got the most victory points, and they will be the winner. So on each player's turn, they're going to have to move their ship. Now, where they stop is going to dictate what actions will then be available to them, and how far they've moved might affect how many actions they can do. For example, most of the areas on the board are villages. When you move your ship, you count how many spaces you've gone when you get to a village, and that will give you access to village actions. If you've gone up to 4 spaces, up to 3 spaces, you get 1 action, 4 to 6 is 2, and 7 is 3. At least at the beginning of the game, that is true. When you get to a village, the things you can do are, for one of your village actions, you can just take a coin, which you'll need in order to do things. The other thing you can do is completely discard your hand of cards. You start with a hand limit of 4. If you throw them all away, you'll get 2 coins. Or finally, you can buy a card. Now, when you buy a card, you can either add to these prestige cards at the top here, one of which will reveal at the end of each round, and they basically give you access to endgame scoring. Or more often, you're going to be adding cards into your own tableau, and this will very much generate what path you go along as you go through the course of the game. Now, each card has got a monetary cost on it, and you need to pay that cost in order to bring it into your tableau. It may have additional costs, for example, giving away some of your workers back into the supply or various other things, and you'll have to pay that as well. They also all have a points value for you at the end of the game. It's also important to note where those cards come from. You can build cards that you have in your hand, but also you've got a planning area up here in which at any time you can put a card into, but it can hold a maximum of 3 and you can never discard these cards. So it's a good way of keeping your hand free, but you want to make sure you've got a plan for how you're going to get these built. When you do pay the money in additional costs, you can then put the card into play, and there are 4 different sorts of effects you can have in the game. Now, there are lots of different things they can do, but in general, when I play this down, this has got a beige space on here, as have these other ones. If it's got a beige space, that is an instant thing that you can get, an instant grab. In this case, it gives me combat value. I can move my combat value up here, which is going to help me when I come to combat. It might give me instant money, it might give me points. This one, for example, helped me in my ship upgrades, allow me to take one of these ship upgrades tokens off. This one gave me influence in the different nations around here. There are lots of different effects, but if it's got a beige background, that is going to give you something that is instant and then done. If it's got a green background, for example, this one has on here 1 coin in green, that is going to affect one of my 2 income tracks. I've got one for coins, which I'll get at the end of every round, and I've got one for points, which I'll also get at the end of every round. And by building this one, my coin income will go up by 1, and that would help me throughout the course of the game. Now, also, you'll note that these have got additional incomes on them. For example, if I built this martyr down here, it would give me the red value, which is an ongoing effect. The one above it gives me an extra combat action I can do, again, during combat. This one here allows me to pay combat value to get some of my workers. Again, lots of different effects, but if they're red, they're an ongoing power. It also has a conditional income here, and that's to do with these synergy tokens. So, for example, if I built this Vice Admiral and brought him into play, the instant effect there is to gain this synergy token. And for the martyr here, if I have the bravery, the medallion, that gives me an extra 2 income in points every round. So there's ways in which you can look to build certain cards to give you the tokens to power other cards up. And it's in getting this synergy between the cards you build in your tableau and the effects they give you that you're going to drive yourself along one of the paths. So we've got instant bonuses in beige. We've got income, which is in green, which can be affected by the synergy tokens that you take. And you've got ongoing effects and powers, which you have in red. Finally, when I took this Vice Admiral, they gave me the final type of box, and that is a blue box. Now that says, in Space 19 Camarco, I have to put one of my assistants. And that now becomes an assistant on the board for me. And when I go and visit there, that's the second type of action I can take. I can take an assistant action when I get there. So for village actions, How far you move is how many actions you get. You can either get 1 coin, throw all your cards away for 2 coins, or you can build cards in front of you for the 4 different types of powers: instant, ongoing, income, or assistant, or you can add to these end game scoring prestige ones. And in fact, doing that will get you another synergy token, that one there, which can help power up your tableau. Building the tableau up, go into villages. What other type of actions can we have? Well, we talked about this assistant. If I did happen to get all the way around here to space 19, instead of taking village actions on that turn, I can do whatever it says on here. In this case, the Vice Admiral is going to give me points for these having taken part in combat. Again, there are lots of various effects of what these things can do. And also, it's going to give me 3 extra village actions. So it's a complete bonus for me having that assistant there. It's always going to be a good thing, and it generally is. Okay, the other type of space we can have on the board. Let's say I haven't gone all the way around there yet. I've come here, and I wish to come and complete what this is called a quest tile. When I come here to this quest tile, it's saying I need 2 different types of items. On the card, you've got the cost, you've got victory points, you've got effects, and on here you've got 2 small icons. Now the bottom one are the items. If I'm able to show that I have the 2 items required, in this case it is 2 herbs, I can throw those away and I get the effect of the quest tile and take it off the board. This is going to give me some money for having compasses and also get me another worker out of the pool, and I'll put it down here onto my quest tile space. Why am I doing that? Well, first of all, it's giving me that bonus for doing it, which is a nice thing. Also, I'm going to score points when I get a certain amount of them. It may affect my end-game scoring if I've unlocked for having quests up here. But also, each player is going to choose from 2 career paths at the beginning of the game. When you get to a certain number of things, for example, for combat tokens, I've already claimed that one. If I got up to 4 quests on here by doing them, I can claim this worker and bring it into play for me if I'm running short. Also, when I manage to do them all, I get a bonus, and it can be victory points because there's 2 different levels of claiming these. I always get coins, I might get victory points. When I've done them all, I become an admiral and flip that over and make my mast nice and taller. And why might I want these? Well, you can see I might have to pay them to pay for cards. I might want them as assistants on the board and various other things. So doing quests will add them up, might score you points, but generally they trigger off other ways and possible end game scoring. So villages, assistants, quests, the last thing are these cities. Now, when you stop at a city, you can trade with the city and you can also do the action, and you can do either, both, or. If you wish to trade with the city, that's how you're going to upgrade your ship. This city here is Santo Domingo in this version, because these are all tiles, is going to want some corn. If I have a card, that's the second of those 2 symbols, items for quests, resources for trading with corn on it, I can throw that away again. I get to take one of these off my board and put it in play there, because there's a limited number of trades can take place at each city each turn, and that's the only effect that has. However, there are 12 upgrade spaces on your own ship, and when you've taken both of the discs off an upgrade space, it gives you a particular bonus. Again, it might be in beige and instant income, be it money or be it points. It could be red, being an ongoing power. In this case, I've unlocked it. It's easier for me to get more village actions. I have to do fewer moves, just 2 to get 2 actions and so on. And all of these are linked to boosting up again along the path in conjunction with your card tableau as to what direction you wish to go in. So in a city, you get to do trade. There are other actions you can do, and it depends upon what city tile is in play, and these will be varied for each game. In this case, I can earn money, or I can score points for having these assistants on the board. Up here, I could earn combat power, or I can get another ship upgrade. Over here, I can move my explorer along the track. What's my explorer? Everyone has an explorer. When you get explorer moves via city actions, card boosts, various things in the game, you move along the track, and where you choose to stop, that's going to give you that bonus. The further along you get a little bit of bonuses for getting farther along. To get to the end, you get a certain number of points. And also there are 3 quests along the track, and if you reach, you can choose to divert to the quest space, again, hand in the items, do the quest, add it to your board, and so on. Now, those are most of the city actions. Maracaibo is always going to be in play, and it's always going to give you the chance to do combat, and we need to talk about that, because that will drive a lot of the end game scoring. Within the game, there are 3 different nations, and every time you go into combat, you can choose to fight for any of the nations. But what you're going to be doing when you do things is driving up your influence and hopefully adding to their presence on the board. And by having lots of influence, in the nation that's been most active and had lots of presence on the board, that's going to score you end game points. So when we come here and choose to do the combat action, the first thing we do is flip over one of these combat tiles. It's going to give us various values for the 3 different nations in play. And then we're going to choose for this combat which nation we're going to represent. For example, for this one, the middle ground is representing England, will give us 4 combat power. If we choose to do France for just 2 combat power, we get a bonus of coins. Or Spain has got more combat power on this tile, but will cost us points. Let's say we choose to go with France. We'll take our 2 coins. Also, we're going to look at the combat value we have. And that, in effect, is the beginning of our action points to take combat actions. So I have 2 action points, but remember this combat track that I boosted up by playing as Legionnaire? I can also spend these points to boost what I'm going to do. So what can we do? To begin with, and as you've seen with cards, you can open up other combat actions, but just to begin with, you can boost your influence and or you can put cubes off that nation into play. To boost your influence is simple. By spending, let's say, these 2 points I have here, I can simply boost myself up the influence track for France. If I'd chosen to spend 5, I would go much further along by moving 2 spaces rather, but that would have me spending those 3 extra ones. In order to make this worth anything, I have to bring the cubes onto play, and that's the other basic combat action. If I wish to put a cube into an area where there isn't a cube yet, that's simple. I simply pay 4 combat points. I can take them off here or use these. I take the next cube along, I put it into play, and I get the bonus that's in the flag. If, however, I wish to knock someone out, that's going to cost me more combat action points. Again, it starts at 6, and in doing that, it's exactly the same effect. I gain 1 influence, and I get to knock them out. But I do that. That cube does not go back onto the board, it's removed from play. So just by getting cubes of the nation into play, you're going to make them more profitable for the end game scoring that we will get to. You then get to take the combat tile, and they can also score you points. For example, if I ever got onto this military base, I'm going to score 2 points for each combat tile I've had each time I've done combat over the course of the 4 rounds. Village actions, we've got quest actions, we've got assistant actions, and we've got the city actions of whatever it says on the particular city. A round is going to start drawing to a close when a player gets up to space 20. They must stop on 20. Then in rounds 1 to 3, everyone knows they've got 1 more action, and then the player on 20 is going to go across to 21, score 3 points, and trigger an interim scoring. For the 4th round, it takes slightly longer. The player at 20 will then go to 21B, and then we'll go to 22 and trigger the final scoring. So let's look how scoring will work. In each of the interim scorings, you get a chance to play 1 more card, or add to a prestige card, or just claim 2 points. Then you're going to get your income in money and also in points. You then get to do a free ship upgrade by taking off one of these discs and boosting up your powers. Then we're going to wipe that card market, because at the end of every round, you're going to draw up to your hand size. Your hand size is generally 4 unless you've upgraded your ship. Whenever you're drawing up, you can draw from the top of the deck for free. If you wish to choose from the face-up market, it costs 1 coin for each of those you draw, and they'll get refilled when you're done. In this case, that market gets wiped and refilled. We're going to reveal a new prestige building, flipping it over. In this case, that's going to trigger endgame scoring if you get on there for each of these synergy tokens you've taken. If you're playing the story variant, which we're going to get to, that would then trigger on, and then every single ship comes back to Havana ready to start the next round again from there, with the next player after the person who triggered the end of the round. Final scoring is very similar. You get to add once only to a prestige card. You're then going to score your income in victory points. On the coin track, you see how far along you've got, and there is a victory point value, and you're going to score that rather than take coins. It doesn't make any sense to take coins. Then each of the cards in your tableau is going to score you points. Each of the prestige buildings that you're on is going to score you points. And finally, we'll get to this scoring, which is linked to how influential you are with the nation and how much they've been in play. You're going to see how far along you are. For example, if I was here with France, I would be at the noble rank of ×4. You'd then look and see what France's scoring is. In this case, it's 2 because there's 2 areas free of cubes. You check which nations have got the most cubes in play at the end of the game, and they're going to get a boosting of 2, and second place will get a boosting of 1. And then you multiply that value by the value of your noble rank, and you score those points. And everyone does that for each of the 3 different nations. So boosting your influence and getting them into play is going to score you lots of points at the end of the game. Once you've done all that, you check the VP track. Whoever scored the most points will be the winner of Maracaibo. Now, this is the basic setup for the game. This is one of a possible 13 setups in which you can make the board more complicated, but also there is a story mode in the game, which I briefly mentioned. So what does the story mode do? Well, it has 11 different chapters. So you can play through the chapters in sequence, or you can choose a particular chapter that say you liked it or you just want to explore it, and there's a setup card to play from the beginning of that chapter. The setup cards bring particular cards into play in the deck, so you get new ones coming through. But also, perhaps more importantly, they change the board. And I'm not going to do too many spoilers, I'll just show you a couple of things that can happen. For example, the village of Puerto Cabezas here can be upgraded into a city, and then city action will be available on there. Or this innocuous looking island up here at number 18 can suddenly become a pirate haunt, and by going there with a very strong combat value, you can gain lots of influence with the nation and make loads of money for driving those pirates away. And there are 21 different tiles that will mix and match the board at various times. In terms of driving the story on, what you get is extra quest tiles, and whatever card is in play will tell you what you have to do when you get there in order to move on to the next card and make your way through the whole story deck. But whether you choose to play with a basic setup, a chapter setup, or follow the story all the way through, the basic game is that, and it is how you play Maracaibo. This has been a Game Pit Stop. For more videos like this, check out our YouTube channel, or for more in-depth coverage of gaming, please check out the Game Pit podcast. Thank you very much.